Last weekend at Woolwich, another London cinema bit the dust. 20 years ago, Hounslow High Street boasted 5. Today, there are none. Lambeth's 12 have dwindled to 3 in 6 years. And now, the cinema's facing new threats from video and cable television. So, do London's suburban cinemas have a future? Peter Prendergast reports.
New craze saves cinemas from total annihilation. Bingo.
21, hold it please.
Other, less sedate uses were found for them. The surviving cinemas continued to be carved up by television, which now had a place in virtually every home. Many were divided into 2, 3, 4, and even 5 units. The number of projectionists was also cut, as new technology meant one man could now operate up to 5 cinemas at the same time at a push of a button. Many cinemas were their own worst enemies. David Atwell is a GLC architect and cinema buff. He's visited over 1,000 cinemas in the last 10 years.
I think the writing is on the wall, frankly, for the suburban cinema. They don't compete in terms of presentation, of price, of entry, of the standard of maintenance. They're shabby. Cinema prices, for example, over the last 20 years have gone up nearly double inflation. There is no incentive now to get you away from the far side armchair and the television set to go out and see a single film in a dirty, cold cinema.
Another complaint is the lack of choice, with too many local cinemas showing the same film, and not enough family entertainment. So, do cinemas deserve to survive? Does it really matter if they don't? Some people think it does. This year, the Rio in Hackney was saved from closure with GLC money, but £11,000 is a modest lifeline considering the importance they attach to cinemas.
In certain areas where cinemas are closing, they are the only social amenity, they are the only recreational institution, as it were, or opportunity for people in that locality. And it means that areas that have got very, very little, with the closures of their cinema, are almost totally then deprived of recreational resources.
But they're up against the harsh realities of commercial life. Circuit owners like Rank have other priorities.
The reality of the situation is that we cannot go on running all the cinemas we have if some of them are losing money. That was the position that was facing us last year. 20 years ago, we had 596 cinemas. If we were still running 596 cinemas, we'd be in Carey Street. We have to be realistic.
Would Rank keep open an unprofitable cinema?
We would keep open an unprofitable cinema only because we could foresee that that cinema is going to turn around financially and make a profit in the future.
And if you couldn't foresee that it was going to make a profit in the future?
We have closed them down.
Closed down, but not knocked down, because many cinemas are now listed buildings. One listed cinema is the Granada at Tooting. The man responsible for putting this and other cinemas on a par with churches and stately homes is the intrepid David Atwell.
So I was about 10 when I came here first in the early 1950s, and there was a wonderful sense of occasion about coming here. It was a mysterious, great baronial hall, and there was a manager in his evening dress who'd greet you as you bought your tickets, and there were liveried commissionaires and staff around, and this great feeling of grandeur, and very cheap tickets too, as you walked across the marble floor to this great auditorium. 4-hour programme for 9p or a shilling, 1 and 3p if you really were going up to the Circle, and it was a superb place. And even in the 1970s, when its last days, I used to come then, and there'd perhaps be a dozen people in the Circle. And one could tell it was nearing the end of its life. But at the same time, it was magnificently maintained as a building, and still this grandeur and this sense of occasion about coming here. This is exotic North Africa. Not, you might think, stone, but plaster. All part of dressing up a stage set, which is what it was all about.
If it is society who wants to have an example of, let us say, 1930 Odeon cinemas, I think it's actually for society to pay for that.
But incredibly, at a time when cinema audiences have plummeted to an all-time low, a paltry 5% of their post-war peak, there are still people who actually want to buy cinemas. Earlier this year, the Cannon Group of America bought the classic chain. Surely even the mighty dollar can't resurrect the great days of the cinema.
I doubt if we'll ever get back to that, because people have so much to do with their leisure time. but I certainly feel that the cinema has a very important part to play in every major city and town. We believe in luxury seating, luxury carpets, and the best sound possible, which is normally Dolby stereo sound.
But even luxury seating and carpets may fail to absorb cinema's latest and greatest threat, video. Britain is now the world's fastest growing video market, with 1.5 million people already owning video machines, and the number expected to double next year. But ironically, some people believe that video could actually rescue cinema. The Embassy at Waltham Cross has 4 screens. One of them is served by a perfectly ordinary video recorder. It's just like watching a video on your television at home, only the screen's bigger and the quality of the pictures not always as good. When Frank Pankhurst first became a projectionist 35 years ago, there were at least 5 reel changes per program. Today, for the video screen, it's just a matter of changing cassettes. And the projector operates itself.
Maybe 10 years' time, there will be no 35. You'll have video theatres in shops. Maybe just use supermarkets, that sort of thing. You don't need the staff to run them. You only need one person to push several buttons. And transfer from film to tape is much cheaper. Tape is cheaper, generally. And I think that will be the coming thing.
I reckon by the end of the 1980s there'll be some 20 to 25 cinemas in the West End of London and virtually none in the suburbs except a few of the specialist art houses, which are much smaller cinemas, able to cater to a specialist audience.
Peter Prendergast on the plight possibly of London cinemas, and certainly I'll keep my dreams. Well, that's all from us this evening. We'll be back at the same time next week. Join us then. For now, good night.